The question, what would have to happen for it to sell off past 80,000 and down to 60?
The worst case Bitcoin scenario in 2026 isn't necessarily what you think. From the people we're losing in this Bitcoin movement to the more sober outlook for 2026 that a lot of people are coming to terms with here at Crypto Analysis Pro. What's my bear case for next year? And in today's video, I'm going to simply explain it to you in 10 minutes or less. I want to present you with 3 reasons why 2026 might actually be more bearish. Also, make sure you stay and watch until the end of the video today to get my full thoughts on what actually comes in 2026, including what Cathie Wood says, including a new clip from Wall Street analyst Jordi Visser. So, let's start here with Fidelity's latest analysis on what comes next for crypto. They say the bear market is here and Bitcoin is heading down to $65,000. That's what Fidelity's director of global macro, Jurrien Timmer, thinks. Jurrien Timmer is the director of global macro at Fidelity Investments. He's been with the organization a long time, put out a lot of good research. So, this is what he says. While Jurrien is still bullish on Bitcoin in the long term, he believes that Bitcoin is once again following its historical 4-year cycle driven by its halving. So, Bitcoin's all-time high of 126,000 on October 6th was the cycle top in both price and time. Based on the 4-year cycle, Fidelity is predicting that 2026 will be a down year with support for Bitcoin currently at the 65,000 to 75,000 price range. What's your take on this? To add to the bear case for 2026, this has been shocking the market. This is what has been circulating. Breaking news screenshots circulating on Reddit shows Tom Lee's 7,000 December Ethereum price target, or 7,000 January Ethereum price target, is now 1,800 target for next year. Also calling for a huge pullback in equities, stock market, and crypto performing the worst. LOL is what the post says. So, this is a real screenshot from Tom Lee's company, Tom Lee's analytics company Fundstrat, where their goal is to kind of predict what happens next. And you can see here how bearish the actual 2026 outlook is. And this surprised a lot of people because Tom Lee has been so bullish on Bitcoin and crypto, Ethereum, for next year. So just some of the things that he has been writing to his investors. Despite my view that Bitcoin and crypto faces powerful long-term tailwinds and that the liquidity-driven support should emerge in 2026, there are several risks that we likely need to clear in Q1 and Q2 that could create more attractive entry points. My base case is a meaningful drawdown in the first half of 2026, with Bitcoin falling to 60,650,000, Ethereum to 1,800 to 2,000, and Solana $50 to $75. These levels would present attractive opportunities into year-end. If this view proves incorrect, I still prefer to play defense and wait for confirmations of strength. I suspect that sometime in the first quarter to the third quarter, we find a durable low and rally into year-end, effectively ending the 4-year cycle with a shorter and shallower bear market than in previous cycles. While there are few effective places to hide for long-term crypto strategies during periods of downside volatility, altcoins without a structural bid appear most vulnerable, followed by crypto-linked equities stocks. That said, any reset in prices should create compelling opportunities across L1s, DeFi, and crypto-linked equities as multiple compress while forward earnings continue to improve. So, this document went out to fund strategy investors, which is actually very different than what Tom Lee has been tweeting. Bitcoin extremely oversold, bounce follows, and January is bullish, Tom Lee's been saying. And the final reason why 2026 might be more bearish than what we think is, maybe we're losing some key figures in the Bitcoin movement. Crypto community, very sorry. Over Senator Loomis's re-election decision. Industry supporters say crypto would not be where it is today without U.S. Senator Cynthia Loomis, who announced she would not seek re-election next year. Obviously, Cynthia Loomis is most known for and has been the one leading the charge for the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. To lose Cynthia Loomis on this is a big deal. This will still move forward in Congress, but without her to lead, it's uncertain how likely is it to actually happen. So, I'm going to give you more context on Tom Lee, on the 4-year cycle, on the state of the market today, what ARK Invest just said, what's actually going on in Congress, and so much more context. But to be clear, while the bull case was 150,000 in January, invalidating the 4-year cycle, this is what Tom Lee was saying publicly he thinks could happen. The bear case is that, we could see a slight bounce to 110K even. So let's move this right there. The bear case is that is a lower high, and we fall to what is strong support. In my opinion, 65K, that's last cycle, all-time high. Old resistance, new support, very strong, and we bounce from 65,000, 60,000, 65,000, which could be the bottom. But if the 4-year cycle holds up, and 4-year cycle has always been intact, and just like every 4-year cycle, this 26 year is going to be bad, followed by a capitulation into 2027. 2028 might be more bullish. But if the 4-year cycle is intact, I would expect a bounce from last cycle's all-time high, 60 to 65,000, maybe up to this resistance, up here, around 95,000 to 100,000. And then we would see maybe a final capitulation at 56,000. Again, this is my bear case, everybody. But let me just give you a little bit more context on what we just talked about. Let's start here with the Fund Strat report that got leaked that everybody was attributing to Tom Lee. Tom Lee has actually been forced to comment on that report that came out, and he said there are many analysts that work at Fundstrat. This was not his opinion. This was an opinion by an analyst at Fundstrat, but it was not his opinion, and he still believes that Bitcoin is extremely oversold. Ethereum is extremely oversold. We'll see a bounce, and we'll see a new all-time high in January. That's still what he believes. Although he also believes that 2026 will be volatile with big corrections. Now let's talk about this. The respected Fidelity analyst who says, because of the 4-year cycle, I expect to see lower lows. Bitcoin is going to hit 65,000. Let's talk about the 4-year cycle. Let's talk about the liquidity cycle, the business cycle. And I liked this analysis, this write-up from head of macro research at Global Macro Investor. So, they've believed in the business cycle, the liquidity cycle for quite some time. If you think that the 4-year cycle has been invalidated this time, even though we have yet to kind of see it, but if you think the 4-year cycle will actually not play out, this would be the argument for that. A lot of people have been asking for an update on this chart. The black line is Bitcoin, and the red line up here is the average market path following the last 5 times Bitcoin's RSI broke below 30, which is where it is right now. This chart shows the average Bitcoin trajectory following an oversold RSI reading, with RSI falling below 30 at t equals 0. So far, it's been pretty bang on. Unless you believe that the 4-year cycle is still in play, which we don't, this chart should hold up contextually over time. No, it won't be perfect. But assuming the market isn't already over, it's a useful chart to keep in mind. We've outlined many times based on our work on the business cycle, the current path of financial conditions, and our expectations for overall liquidity. The balance of probabilities is that this cycle extends well into 2026. In that world, the 4-year cycle is dead. Remember, the 4-year cycle was never about the halving despite the widespread belief that it is, but instead has always been driven by the public debt refinancing cycle, as outlined in our work at GMI, which post-COVID was pushed out by 1 year. In our view, the 4-year cycle is now officially broken because the weighted average maturity of the debt term structure has increased. And the bigger picture is that there is still a vast amount of interest expense that needs to be monetized, which has far exceeded GDP growth. Another thing to keep in mind is that bases can take time to form and usually come with plenty of chop before the bigger up move kicks in. So, this is a new video by ARK Invest and Cathie Wood. Per usual, Cathie Wood has kind of the contrarian opinion on the future of the market. What I like about this clip is she actually lays out reason after reason why 2026 might not be as bad as so many people think. Listen to this.
So we think next year could be somewhat of a Goldilocks year. And I think the market is beginning to understand that because it has weathered two very difficult storms this year, tariff turmoil and the government shutdown, as well as all of the hawkish rhetoric from the Fed after Miran entered, a Trump appointee, and really, I think, forced others to lean in the other direction. So lots of hope for 2026, some of which has been discounted by the market. But if we're right, growth will be much stronger, and importantly, inflation will be much, much lower than it has been with tariffs. And we think at some point it could drop to zero or below zero if we're right on oil continuing to fall and rents falling.
And by the way, as far as losing Senator Cynthia Lummis goes, where will she go? She's probably going to start working for a private company and probably a private crypto company like we've seen so many people do. But that doesn't mean that the push for legislation like this and different crypto legislation, that does not mean the push is over. It's still very likely that the Clarity Act will be passed by the first quarter or the second quarter. Make no bones about it. Clarity Act passing by the first quarter or the second quarter would be huge. But even if the worst-case scenario does play out, understand that the future is only going in one direction. More and more people are onboarding to the mobile phones to computers, they're getting digital. Third world countries, second world countries getting way more financial. Case in point, Brazil crypto activity in Brazil rises 43% with average investment surpassing $1,000. Brazil's crypto market shows signs of maturity in 2025 with higher transaction volumes, larger per-user investments, and growing demand for low-risk products. So, Brazil is just a microcosm for what's happening all across the world. The future is digital. In the future, there's going to be way more people in the world. And as way more people come into the world, there is a finite supply of Bitcoin. Ethereum has scarcity dynamics. 95% of the Bitcoin that can ever be mined is already mined. Yet 95% of the people in the world do not have even one Satoshi of Bitcoin. And so that's long-term bullish. A lot of people don't think about the future like this. Wall Street analyst Jordi Visser explains 3 reasons why it is very unlikely that Bitcoin's price drops below 80,000 for any significant amount of time, and why he still believes that Bitcoin is going higher, even though the chart is looking horrible. It's an interesting take.
There's three components of Bitcoin that I've kind of put my side on. When is this going to go back up? Because the one thing I believe in is that it's going higher. The question and the point you made, what's the probability? What would have to happen for it to sell off past 80,000 and down to 60? Well, number one, the chart is horrible. Okay. There is no way. I've said repeatedly, I'll keep saying it, until you close 3 days in a row above 92,000, I think the downtrend is in place, and you have to be very careful that it could extend further than what you believe. What would make it extend? Well, the equity market needs to get worse. I don't think that's going to happen, but like I said, there is a risk to me that growth is going to underperform value. If that happens, which I don't think the market's going to go down, because when you have PMIs going higher, the big risk is that rate hike fears start to enter the market. Like I said, we have disinflation at this point. This looks like the beginning of a reflation stage, which is very good for markets generally. So I think it's a good year for stocks. But if for some reason the rotation dropped down, the hyperscalers, because in the next earning reports, they actually show some risk, Bitcoin could sell off. I don't think that's going to happen. And on a probabilistic basis, a move down below 80 for any significant amount of time to me is a low probability event. The technical side is still bearish. The good side for me, again, I wrote the paper about a silent IPO. I still believe that's going on.
Thank you for watching my video so far. Please watch my previous videos to increase your crypto literacy. Like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Goodbye.